Welcome to No Coast Motofab. I'm Carl, and today we're going to build mini tubs for a Nova. Actually, no, we're not. I lied. As you saw in the last video, we're waiting on shafts for the Nova. So, since we're waiting, I've been eyeballing this. Man, come on. Anyway, I've been staring at it, trying to figure out how I want to do them. And I haven't come up with a good answer yet. And the reason being is right here. I don't know if you can tell. This isn't round, it has a weird shape. And the reason for that is the gas filler comes in there. And so I've looked at a bunch of kits, and I think Detroit Speed has one. A couple other places have one. They come with a new inner fender that bumps that in, but they still have that weird shape. I don't like that. I don't want a nice finish in two different shapes, because the passenger side, oh, what am I doing here? There we go. The passenger side's nice and round. It doesn't have that shape. So I'm still kind of kicking around how I want to do that. So instead, today, we're going to work on the Falcon. So let me get all situated here, and I'll give you a proper introduction to this car, and then we'll get going. Okay, so the story with this car is this showed up, God, years ago for rust in the floorboards. So we started cutting out rust, and everything was rusty. The floorboards, the frame rails, it's a unibody car, but it still has rails on the side. I'll show you here in a little bit. It had rust in the firewall, it had rust in the trunk, it had rust in the quarters, it had rust everywhere. This thing was a major rust bucket. It had the 6-cylinder in it. He wanted to do a V8. By the time we picked a direction, he bought a 2016 Mustang and dropped everything off and said, I want all this Mustang in this car, and I want it all to work. So under the hood here is the Coyote, and it's a tight fit. So built a firewall. We had to do new inner wheel tubs. This engine cover here is covering the radiator reservoir, the coolant reservoir, the power steering reservoir. We're still running the factory everything, because he wants everything to work in conjunction with the Mustang dash. So this one's been a challenge to make everything fit and retain enough of the Mustang that it'll all talk to each other, because he wants everything right down to the heated and air-conditioned seats to work. I figured this would be a good time to do a walk around, because I just finished mounting the front seats. Here's the back seat. We had to narrow the back seat to make it fit in there. It ended up fitting pretty nice. I just finished mounting the shifter and the emergency brake and the console and everything else. He's gonna come pick up all of this interior stuff today, so we'll be back down to the dash. So I figured, since it's together, this would be a good time to do this anyways. This car was wrecked. That's why this is gone. This airbag blew out. We got to get a new one of those. But you can kind of see we're still retaining the factory pedals. I had to build this custom defrost panel to kind of blend the dash into the original car and fit the Falcon. The doors, I still got a long ways to go on the doors. when you get to the rear end, which is where we're gonna start today, well, maybe we'll finish up here. It has a Heights 2, Mustang 2 in the front. More tin work. There's almost nothing left of this car that's factory. It's using the Mustang wheels. They're dirty. But this car originally came with like a 14-inch wheel and a small tire. So when we jumped up this side, you couldn't drive it. Like even above where I wanted it for ride height, you couldn't turn the tires. It was just too far in the fender. So we took 3 inches out of there. So that at ride height, it'll turn. This is actually above ride height a little bit. In the back, let's see, that tucks in there real nice. It has the Mustang independent rear, and the problem that I ran into is I narrowed it 11 inches, and I took it all out around the housing so that it retained the factory arms, the factory brakes, factory everything there. But when you go to drop this out, that's as far as it drops. And that is not enough to get the tires in and out. So if you climb under here, built a fuel cell for it. If you climb under here, you can see where the factory hood manners here that hold the diff have all been narrowed up as far as they can go and still get that in and out. But we still have these. So today, we're gonna get rid of this, all these factory A-arms, and we're gonna build some tubular ones to narrow this probably about an inch more so we can get the wheels and tires off. So, actually, I'll show you in the trunk real quick. These side panels are just sitting there. Still got to throw some Zeus's in them and get them mounted. You can see how that kind of fits over the arms and everything else. This is going to be an air ride car, so there's our air ride setup that we got to build a cover for yet. Trunk pan, lots of V-roll and lots of work. This thing, I've got a lot of time in this one. But he wants it to go to SEMA this year, so we're gonna crank up and really get rolling on this thing and try and get it finished so we can get it out to paint here in the next couple of weeks. So, I think that's it. Is that it? Yeah, that's about it. We'll get some stuff tore apart. We'll get those arms out and we'll get started on building some independent rear, tubular, I don't know, discombobulation arms to make this all work. Quick, why this is such a disaster, and I didn't foresee this, is this arm isn't hooked. Maybe I can stabilize myself. Isn't hooked to anything. It just doesn't have any movement to it. I mean, the sway bar, well, it's cut back there. So it's not hooked to anything. So nothing, the shock is just not hooked. This thing just doesn't move. It won't drop out. So we're gonna change from bushings in there and back there to uniballs at the same time that we narrow this. And hopefully it'll give this a little bit of travel so that'll swing down and let us get that tire off. So anyway, thanks Ford. That's nice. I mean, I know you don't care about my application, but I mean, could have at least given me a reach around on this one. Okay, we got the arms out. Here's our spindle, I guess. And the way this fits together, it's kind of an entanglement. I don't know if you can see that. Your A-arm attaches to this linkage here. It attaches to the spindle here. These are your two attachment points for the car. And then this rod here comes in from the bottom, grabs that, and that adjusts your caster, camber, I don't know. You'd think, with as long as I've done this, that I would one of these days get those two straight, but it's probably never gonna happen. So now, and then it also has this guy. It goes right here. And this adjusts the top part. So actually, I guess this would be your caster. This one down here would be your toe. So you could tow in and out on the rear. This guy, it's kind of weird. I don't know if you can see on, there we go. Everything's offset because your axle rides right through here. So this one, we don't need it to do this anymore. It did this to clear some Mustang junk. And now we can just build a new link that just runs straight. And we have plenty of room for that. This one's no big deal. We have this big spring pocket from the factory. And the way I did this in hopes that everything would drop out and the airbag wouldn't hold it, is I did a sleeve on the bottom of the airbag that fit into that spring pocket. And that way when this dropped, it wouldn't be stretching that bag. That bag would just, travel up a little bit. But our problem was that bushing and that bushing aren't in line. So it held everything so bound that this had only a couple inches of travel. Which doesn't give us enough to get tires in and out. So this one's easy. Just straight arm. We'll just cut that sumbitch, bring it back together. We'll probably do a couple fish plates on it just so we feel good about it. That one's easy. I'd like to keep this same type setup just so that as it travels out for real this time, so that actually does what it's supposed to. This one we decided is easy. This we can't change because it has to hold wheel speed sensors, anti-lock sensors, all that other awesomeness to make that dash work. So we got to build around this. Which brings us to this guy. Now I know this could be kind of intimidating because it looks like, it looks like a squid or octopus or something stupid. But it's not going to be as bad as you think. We know this is going to be our square point right here. So we'll square this up and we'll just build a jig right here on the bench. We'll build something to capture this and this so the bolts will drop through. We'll build something to capture this so the bolt drops through. But off of this, when we bring it down, we'll do it on a long surface here. Oh, there. We'll do a long surface here and we'll mark it. We'll do the same with this one here. We'll probably attach both of these to this same fixture. And that way, when we pull the bolts out, we get this arm out. We can move this whole fixture in 1 inch or 1.5 inches, whichever we decide. If probably start at 1 inch, try it in the car, see if we can get the tire on and off. Just tack together, and if it works, we'll leave it at 1 inch. If not, we'll bump it in however much more that we need to go, shorten everything up again, and keep test fitting till it works. So it really shouldn't be that bad. We're gonna have to get a little creative with our tube work, because this is where that bag needs to sit to clear everything. And then I'm gonna put that stuff instead of bushings, we're going to be going to uniballs. So we can weld right to these. You can see it's machined on the one side so that it has a stop. Just a snap ring on the other side. You can see that snap ring surface in there, or that groove. And that's basically just a heim with misalignments in it, so that we can get to whatever bolt size we need to make this all work. So this will weld to the arm. These are a super tight fit. I might have to tap those in a little bit. But those guys will finagle their way in there. And then, rather than riding on a bushing, we'll ride on a heim, which will free all that up and let this travel the way that it needs to, so that we can get our tire on and off. So I'm gonna pull some measurements, got some tabs. I'm just gonna build the jig right on the bench, because I know that this is flat and good. And we'll come back after that. Here we have that rear A-arm all set up in our jig. So these have a spacer in them, because remember, this catches an arm. This catches our hub or our spindle. So we're gonna build tabs towards the outside of these. This is where our uniballs are gonna go. So they're gusseted back this way, so we don't get any deflection. We want all this to be really solid. So these two are both set up like that. These are just some quick tabs I burned out. They're tacked to the table. These are welded to this. It's just a piece of scrap I had laying around, and it's squared up with the front edge of the table. This here is tacked down square with this face. And so now we'll pop this out. We'll take this piece, slide it back 1 inch, and this is going to keep it square with everything so that we don't get skitty-wampus this way. And if we do, we have a good place to locate again. So we'll get this popped out now. We'll get everything slid back. Once it's slid back that inch, I'll probably tack this to the table rather than just clamp it, so there's no way it can move. And that's how we'll go about narrowing up these arms. Okay, here we are. We slid this back 1 inch, like we said. Bring a couple tabs to connect here. This I struggled with, but I think this is going to be a good solution. That way we can get our bolt in there. It's 5/16 in here, and it gives us a good place to attach the tube. That is locating the bag, so we can make sure that we have room up for our bag, and that's going to set our height too, so that we when we get around to figuring that part out. This has actually been kind of a mess. So these are narrower than what we were before, so I spun out a couple spacers there and there and slid these towards the outsides, and that way it handles the leverage better. If we were to slide them in and put the spacers on the outside, we're just putting more leverage on the frame right there. So we slid those towards the outside. When I ordered these, I thought that it was 1.5 inches across here, because we're using 1.5 inch DOM 120 wall tube. Since we're on the rear end and this is where all our power's heading, we want to make sure we have a good size and wall thickness so that nothing deflects. But they're actually 1.25 inches. So I just stuck that in the vise and squish that end. So we're 1.5 inches here, tapered up to 1.25 inches, and it's kind of sitting a little skitty-wampus because I've been just grabbing the scrap that I have laying around, and if I just did something like that, it's by the time it's coped, it's going to look not great. So I think I'm going to come off and put a bend in there. Well, maybe if I go to the bottom, that'll give it a little nicer attachment point. It'll also line up that tube. That's why that's kicked over just a hair, is just to carry that through and look right coming down to that. So that also left us with a really screwed up coat back here, because when this kicks over at an angle, there's just no way. You can see that's the edge of our tube there, and this would have been hanging clear out into here. So I brought those together. I have this gap on the top. I'm probably just going to weld that up because I'm also going to put a strap on this. There's just not enough attachment there for my liking. So we'll do like a 3/4 inch strap at a, I don't know, 1/8 inch. We'll come from like here, wrap all the way around this uniball and back out onto the tube here. And that way we fully capture that, just to make sure it's strong enough. So this is where we're sitting now, and I mean, guys, if you're going to do this on something, it's basically the same process for about any independent setup. Just build yourself a nice jig, something you can trust, something that won't move. Be accurate, be meticulous, and just make sure everything's lined up right. And in the end, you'll be good. So I'm gonna get this finished up and we'll throw it in the car. Okay, you guys just watched me get this tube cut and notched. And if you were paying attention, I did it with a bandsaw. You can do this with a bandsaw, chop saw. You can cope it with a pipe, not a pipe cutter, hole saw, and like a hole saw jig. But doing it this way actually has some advantages. You see, you still get a really nice fit. But the difference is, if you use like a coping tool that you buy that uses like the hole saw cutter or an end mill or anything like that, when you set that pipe on there, it takes it out to a point right there. And if you don't take the time to grind that back and you just weld it the way it is, your weld's gonna end up out here. And so you're welding a feathered point to something with a thicker surface. I mean, here's gonna be irrelevant, but on your points where it copes onto the tube, if you don't take the time to grind that back, your weld's not gonna be as strong. We're like with a bandsaw or a chop saw or something like that, you have that square edge, and it gives you a nice place to put that weld. And it's gonna make for a stronger stronger weld, a stronger attachment point, all that. So if you're using like a hole saw, like I've got a coping set up for my mill, my lathe. I've got one of the copers that you hook to your drill and use as hole saws. But on anything structural, you really need to make sure that you're getting rid of that fine edge if you're doing anything structural. Or if you don't have one, oh God, this bench is such a mess. I'm gonna clean this one of these days, but probably not. Chop saw, bandsaw, any of that stuff will work good, because see how that leaves a nice profile for welding. Anytime you're doing something structural, you want to make sure that that doesn't come out to a point. So I'm gonna tack this together and we'll see if it fits. Okay, you can see we got this arm stuck in here. I don't have anything tight. Like I've got that going into maybe 2 threads. I don't have my spacers in yet. Just, you can see our jig worked out perfect though, because we have 0 gap there, 0 gap there. So nothing moved. Everything stayed good where it was supposed to. This is the length that we built rather than that big goofy U-shaped offset weird arm. We still have plenty of room for our shaft to travel through, our drive shaft. I'll have to gusset this right here, because with that arm coming straight down, there's going to be a lot of twisties on that. So this is going to need to be tied back in to be a little more solid. But let me zoom out a little bit. If you remember, with that original arm, well, maybe I didn't record that. With that original arm and those rubber bushings up there, I could stand on this thing and it would not, it wouldn't droop out like this. And look how nice this is now. So no more binding, everything's freed up. Should be a lot more rigid, a lot more solid. So let's see if we can get a tire on it. It fits, goes on. And look how much nicer this moves. That's at full tuck. And then after we have a blowout on the side of the road, or after the back tires are burned off, look at that. So before, from here down at full droop with the stock suspension, the furthest from this point down it would go was 6 inches. And now, I don't know if you can see that, we're at almost 10. So we picked up 4 inches of droop just by getting rid of those bearings that were bound up, going to rod ends. And we also narrowed ourselves up an inch. And most importantly, get in here. Now, we can get the tire off. Here it is all finished up. This plate, flip this over, that's the bottom. It's upside down. There we go. So that bag will sit in here. Remember we had that sleeve so that it could slide in and out, drop off. Shock mount. You got the gusset in, coming to this front side. I kind of boxed it in just to make it look a little better. I didn't like, it looks stupid with just little tabs. But there we are, all finished. Some speed holes kind of make it look a little better, and if we get water and dirt in there, it'll help it all drain so that we don't collect dirt and water anywhere. So there you go. That's I think we're gonna leave it right there. Next episode we'll get back on the Nova, bust out the bead roller and everything else, we'll go through and, you know, yeah, make it nice. And then like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.